Hi, welcome back to another OVR weekly shooting drill. As you can see this week, we have a special guest again. My wife Shai is joining us,
Hi, Ruben.
and she's going to help us with this particular drill. Yes, no, it is a drill, it's not a drill, but it's really something that needs to be practiced by all families. While this isn't a drill that, in the sense that you're going to be shooting at a range, this drill is really important to help protect your family, especially if you're out somewhere. As I said, I've asked my wife to join me to kind of give you an idea of what we're going to be looking at for this drill. And, we're calling it a personal protection. Some people might call it like an executive protection. Uh, but, it's not really an executive protection because this is our family we're protecting. So before everyone gets all up in arms, we're not trying to make anybody any kind of a Secret Service agent or anything like that. For this drill, you're reacting to a situation, to a bad situation that you're out at. And obviously for professionals, they've already mapped these things out. They've trained hours and hours, especially with the person they're trying to protect. They've trained with. So it's probably easier that we explain this more as a scenario. So this is a scenario where my wife and I are at church. We could be at a movie theater. We could be walking around the mall. Really, any public place that has potential of a mass shooter where we're actually allowed to carry a gun. So, this wouldn't be at a hospital or at a government building or anything like that. And, for clarity reasons for this drill, you can see I've put my holster here to be seen. Normally, you would have that concealed, obviously, if you're out shopping at the mall. So the scenario is this: she and I are out at the mall, walking around shopping, we're holding hands, and suddenly there's a gunfire. You can say that you'll do this or do that, but until the actual adrenaline kicks in, you don't really know what you're going to do. And that's the purpose of performing this drill so that we can work through it, my reaction as well as her reaction. Now, first and foremost, let's drop our egos, let's drop our machismo here, and let's get right down to what the average Joe does and would and could do here. Everyone always talks about, oh, if that were to happen around me, I'd take my gun and I'd go after the shooter. There's really a couple of major problems with doing that, and let's be real about this. The first major problem with this is training. Most people are not trained to be able to pull their pistol out and hunt somebody down that could be a threat. Yes, you might be at the firing range shooting, but it doesn't mean you actually know how to go and judgment shoot, shooting the correct person. So that's one of the big problems. The other big problem is the person you're with. If I go hunting down a shooter, who's protecting my wife? She's my priority. She's the one that I'm going to protect. So I really don't care what's going on around me. And I hate to say that. My wife is who I'm going to protect, or whoever's with me. Another major thing to consider, which is really kind of why OVR was founded, is there are a lot of people out there that are carrying a concealed weapon. Some have never even shot that gun, much less had to draw it from any kind of a holster or shoot back at somebody. And so if you're the one with a pistol out trying to hunt down what you perceive as a threat, you now have become that threat. And so the last thing you want is for you to get shot because, again, you're not able to protect your family. So the focus here needs to be your family. Sure, Shai can shoot. I've taught her how to shoot, and I would trust her to be able to shoot accurately as a marksman. But again, she's not trained to go out and do this judgment shooting. And so for her to decide who is and isn't a threat, I don't know that that's the best thing to do. And so in this case, I would have to protect her. With that said, your family has to be your priority. Period. End of statement. So you need to train with this. And we're going to present this really in two different ways on training. And you can do this by yourself here in OVR, but we encourage you to bring your family in and work together to train on it. So the first factor to train when you have a situation like this is to make the fastest exit you can. And then if for some reason that can't happen, your next priority needs to secure yourself in place and create a good defensive position. So we're going to start with protecting on an exit. It sounds simple enough to find the exit and go. But the problem with that is if I find that exit and I head towards it, is my wife following me? I don't know the answer to that. And especially if I've got kids, if you've got a 5 or a 6 or a 10-year-old, are they really keeping up with you? So your first priority here, for lack of better terms, is circle your wagons. Get everybody under control first. And so if there was a shooting that happened, and let's pretend that the threat is straight over here by where my second camera is, and there's a door there, if that's where the potential threat is, then I need to make sure I'm between my wife and that threat, and I'm getting her together. I'm right-handed. And so in this case, if I had my pistol out, it really is not a good idea to have her on my right side. So what we'd have to do is sort of switch. And you can see I'm positioning myself between her and where this threat is. Pistol's ready. I've got my arm out and around her. I want to know where she is. Now, if you take a good look, she's got a hold of my belt loop. I have a good friend of mine who's 4-year-old. When he says danger, she gets behind him and does this. And it's a great thing to watch. It's awesome. But, with my wife, if she's got a hold of my belt, then I have both hands free. But if for some reason she can't grab that belt, I want to know where she's at. So I want to keep my hand kind of by her as we go towards that exit. Again, once I identify the exit, it may not be the closest one, just like on an airplane. It may not be the nearest one. It may not be the one right in front of me. I've got to find that and decide. The issue with doing that too is that exit, by the time I get my family together and then see that exit, it could already be blocked by the shooter, or there could be a whole nother group of people trying to make a mass exit. And now I have a crowd that I would have to contend with. So once again, as far as that exit goes, I want to make sure I get my family together first, then identify where that exit is. Because if I identify the exit first, by the time I head that direction, things could change. So then you have to decide. It's easy if it's just my wife and I, she's going to listen and know what's going on and follow directions. And I'll be able to feel easily because, she's an adult. A 10-year-old, a 5-year-old, you're not going to really be able to feel them. So you might actually have to pick them up. And at that point, trying to carry them and run to an exit, that's a whole nother danger you have to worry about. Let's say we have kids with us. In that case, generally, I would lead the way with my weapon, leave the kids between us so she can act like a sheepdog and herd them together as we head towards that exit. Now, let's also consider the exit side of this. Is once we get to that exit, who goes through the door first, me or her? Depends. Like everything, that there's all different ways of doing this. If the other side of the door is an unknown, and then where we're at is a known threat, I would probably still send her into the unknown because I know where one threat is. The other threat I don't know. I don't want to leave her exposed. If the other threat is, or the other side of the door exit is a known area, let's say law enforcement's out there or something like that, then I would push her through, take post next to that door to protect the backside, and then follow along behind her. So again, what we're presenting is just one way of doing this, and every situation is going to be different. And the only way to prepare for that is to come in and practice multiple different scenarios so that none of it is foreign to you. But regardless of what you do, the most important points here are going to be: one, protect your family. Don't go after the shooter. Don't try to be that hero. Take care of your family first. Second thing is gather your family up. Make sure they're all circled around that wagon before you go and start making for that exit, because you want to make sure that they're going to be safe. Keep some kind of a contact with the family. If you can hold hands, that's fine, but there has to be some degree of contact so you can control them. If we're heading out and I lose track of her and I can't feel her, I'm going to let go of me for just a second. So if I can't feel where she's at, I have a decision I have to make. If I know a threat is this direction, I might have to take my eyes off a potential threat to find my wife. Because otherwise, if I just take one step to the side, she could pass me up. And now she goes into my line of fire if I have to engage the threat. So sometimes you do have to take your eye off that threat to protect your family. Make every attempt to be between the threat and your family. You are their defense, but you're also their offense too. And sometimes a good offense is a good defense, just like in playing football or other sports. Do not go after the shooter. You're not trained to do that. If you're law enforcement or something like that, sure, you can do that. But in reality, again, your family takes precedence. Oh yeah, did I also say protect your family? That's the most important thing. Our second discussion here is to defend in place. So if there's no good exit around, if their threat is definitely between you and any exit that's there, we have to just set ourselves up in a position to defend ourselves. And so, a couple of things that people come up with on this. when you go into a room to secure yourself and you lock that door, people get confused on this. And so who goes to lock the door? If I send her to lock the door, and I think that I'm doing the right thing being safe because I can stay back and have my weapon, so if anything happens, I can engage. The issue is she could be between that threat and me now. So the last thing you want to do is send an unarmed person to lock the door. So if we're in a room and we need to lock that door, I'm going to be the one to lock it. And so I can keep my eye on that door. I'm going to tell her to stay in place in a corner behind a sofa, something like that. But I need to get her totally out of the way so that I can get that door secure. The other thing we need to consider is cover versus concealment. A lot of people don't understand there's a difference between these two. So concealment is just hiding you from something. That could be a curtain, that could be a bush, anything that actually hides you, but it doesn't stop any kind of bullet. Whereas cover typically will conceal you as well, but it stops bullets. Now, it may not stop every bullet, but it stops the majority of them. Now, one of the issues with defending in place is there's zero control that you have. You're in a room really with no other way out, one way in, one way out, and that threat could come in the door, but so could law enforcement. So you have to be on guard, on alert for this. If you just shoot at anything coming through that door, you're going to have a bad shoot. It's guaranteed. So you've got to be able to react quickly. You got to make sure that your family is well away from that entrance and preferably behind you. But in some cases, they may not be able to be for whatever reason. But you certainly want them completely out of your total line of sight and your field of fire to be able to cover that door. It's possible you don't have a door or a room to go into. Let's say you're at a parking garage. Well, if that's the case, then you just need to find something that can provide you some degree of cover. You can go in between two large vans. You can go into a dark hallway. Anything that would give you some degree of protection and some degree of concealment and cover as well. So I want to kind of run through a scenario here as if this were to really happen. I know we kind of talked through it, but I want to sort of run through this with her right now. So again, the scenario, just like we talked about at the beginning, is that we're at the mall. We're just kind of walking and chilling. Now, one of the things with my wife today is she has these heels, platforms, something like that, whatever you want to call the women's shoes. I'm not sure, but they're not tennis shoes. So because of that, she's not going to be able to sprint. And so this is actually a great opportunity for this drill, knowing that she's not going to keep up with me if I try and run to the exit. So in the scenario, we're walking down the mall, we're holding hands, and then there's gunfire. And in this situation, I'm going to say gunfire is coming from this angle over here, and the nearest exit is actually over here. And so, as I said earlier, I'm right-handed. I can't do much holding hands with her. So in this case, I would step over here, because the gunfire, again, is coming from this direction, exits this direction, have my weapon out. I would make sure she's control, I've got her under control where she needs to be protected. And from here, I would keep myself towards where that gunfire is. So initially, I'm kind of sort of in front of her here at the camera. Let's go ahead and head on out. And so I've got a hold of her, and now we're going to switch to our other camera here. And we're not heading straight for that exit. We're kind of going to the side because I don't want to go straight up to the exit. As we come up, I know there's gunfire coming from back here. That's where my threat is. I don't really know in here, so I've got a 50-50 chance this direction. If there's threat or anything, there's a 100% chance of a threat this way. So in this case, we would come up to the door. I would open it and turn, let her go through the door. Once she's through the door, I would turn and go through with her. So here's scenario number 2. Very similar to the first one. We're at the mall, we're walking. We hear gunfire, but because it's at a mall, it sort of echoes. I don't know where that gunfire is coming from. Now, I may be able to see exits on either side, but again, I don't have any idea really where this gunfire is coming from. And so in this case, I'd have to look around where I'm at and try and decide where can we hold ourselves up. So in this situation, again, there's a wall behind us. I would get in front of her. I would try and find a corner somewhere that I can get into a corner, get her directly behind me, and I would just stand there and just be ready and just keep her directly behind. And you can see where she's at. She's got a hold of my belt loop, so if anything happens. At the same time, by her having that belt loop a hold of me, if something does happen, and if I have to move quickly, she's going to know. I don't have to yell at her at all. So if I start to move, she's got my belt loop. She's with me. And then if I have to come back, then I can also reach and feel. So I've got the tactile feel of the belt loop, but then I can reach my hand back and then I'm ready to go again. So again, the final things I'm going to say about this is, again, it's not really a drill, but it is an exercise that you absolutely have to come in and train. And I'd prefer you to train it with your family. You bring them in so you all can work together, just as my wife and I have just done. And we really want you coming in here doing that training. Again, this is not the only way to do this. There are dozens and dozens of ways, and every situation is going to be a little different. But come in, run through it, practice it, and let's make you better, much safer. Let's make your family safe and protect your family. Anything you want to add to this as far as like the drill? Do you feel that if we were to have this situation at the mall or at church or something, do you feel you would be able to react properly after doing this training?
Probably better, but it still might be a little tricky if there's a lot of chaos things
Mhm.
going on because I don't know. Every situation might be different. But
Okay.
I feel more comfortable knowing where I'm supposed to be if something happens.
Okay. Okay. So again, come out to OVR. Let's run through a few of these drills.